I've been taking my time. I feel like I'm out of my mind. It feel like my life ain't mine. I've been on the low, I've been taking my time.
Hey everyone, welcome back to Project Mayday. These are your hosts G and Bree, and today we have Brian Kim. He's out of Houston, Texas, and this man has a very powerful story that he's willing to share with you all. He is a staff sergeant in the U.S. Army, total of about 12 years of service, and thank you so much for that service, buddy. And this man has his high highs and low lows, and he is very, very open to talking about both of those. So welcome, Brian. How you doing?
I'm doing fantastic, and thank you guys for having me on today.
Absolutely, buddy. So let's just cut to the chase, man. Tell us how you got started in the Army.
So right after college, I tried to do some community college for a little bit. However, that didn't work out. And, one day I was working for my uncle doing some construction. He was just like, go join the Army. You're not doing anything. And, that was always growing up as a kid, joining the Army, being a soldier, a police officer, a firefighter was always on a to-do list, right? And back in 2007, no one was hiring ninjas, so I'd cross that off the list.
Dang it!
And, so at the time, I wasn't really doing much. I was, doing horribly in college and just doing jobs here and there, just enough to party and stuff, right? So I walked into the recruiter's office the next day, and about a month and a half later, shipped out to I didn't ship out, I guess. I flew out to middle of nowhere, Missouri. That's where it started.
So why did you pick the Army over the other branches?
That's a good question. I never really thought about it. I always figured they kind of did everything and went everywhere. I like the idea of not being limited. So it was really between the Army and the Marine Corps. I didn't like the idea of wearing blue and being in the middle of the ocean. And, I really just wanted to have a rifle in my hand and go do, some gung-ho stuff. So,
even though you're wearing blue right now.
Yeah. However, I'm not on a huge ship or a boat, right?
Gotcha.
So, I don't know. I always liked the idea that the Army was everywhere, and I had less restrictions, I guess, as far as where I can go and what I can do. So that's what led me to the Army.
Gotcha. Were you involved in any sports growing up, or?
I dabbled. I was never any good. I played football a little bit in middle school, high school. Played hockey when I was a kid, and other than that, basketball with some of the kids in the neighborhood. I would say football would probably be the sport I played the most. I was through middle school and first year of college.
So you had that kind of team feel. So military probably was an easier transition for you.
Yeah. It was definitely the camaraderie and the brotherhood. First generation born, so my parents were working most of the time. And my grandparents pretty much were at home all the time. And my younger brother and my younger cousin, they lived with us. So they were pretty much being watched by the grandparents. And I really grew up in a brother kind of relationship with friends, right? So ever since I remember, I always grew up with my friends. I was always at my friend's house. And it got more so in high school. And so, that transition as far as the camaraderie goes, that's always been a part of my life.
Gotcha. So I know how it was for me, both of us being Asian, the household and the parents. My parents did not support me even wanting to talk about going into the military. So how was that conversation?
I didn't. I'm not going to lie. I wasn't sure I was going to answer this, but I'll be truthful, and I don't know if my parents are going to deny it. My mom's just like, my mom was like, there's not a lot of, you're going to be around a lot of dumb kids.
Oh no!
she's gonna hate me for this. However, and my dad, he was in the Korean Army, doing that. And I don't know what era he thought we were in. However, he was just like, you're going to peel a lot of potatoes. And I was like, I don't think it's that kind of army anymore.
Oh, wow.
That's hysterical. Oh, so, all right, in your military experience, you want to talk a little bit about your tours that you actually were deployed to?
Yeah, so I did two main tours overseas in the Middle East. 2009, I went to Baghdad, Iraq. I was part of a personal security detail out there for the commanding general. And then a year after that, I went out to Kuwait and then immediately flew out to Jordan to set up a security detail out there.
Well, so do you have to qualify for this kind of stuff, or is it they hand pick you? How does it work?
So back in late 2008, my squad leader actually came up to me and was like, you want to deploy? I was like, yeah, what else? Why else am I here? And so we were just kind of, it's like any old school 90s, like bad sports team movie. We were a bunch handpicked throughout the company and we didn't know each other and started training for this mission. Yeah, so we got a lot of training, a lot of fire hose training, back to back to back and just put through the ringer. And yeah, that was probably what started everything. It was like really great experience.
Gotcha. So now let's kind of get into the meat and potatoes here. You and I us three have talked about, the downward trend, as far as the mental aspect goes. So kind of dive into that now. When did you start seeing yourself change a little bit, or did you see yourself change? Did somebody have to tell you? Like, give us that.
Oh, yeah. So I had a great conversation with someone right before this call about that. And it really started in the beginning, even before entering the service, right? My mindset of where I was. Growing up, my parents got divorced when I was young. And, that had impact too. However, moving forward into the military, I believe it's a lot of pressure. One of the things I truly believe is the Army, and don't get me wrong, there's a lot of great leaders within the service and everything. However, for me, it's a lot of leaders that were trained by leaders that were never given real proper leadership training, right? So everyone was doing the best they could and doing what they thought was right. And I was thinking about it. I was 20 years old, and my whole, part of my job was to make sure everyone else around me was safe and the general was safe, right? And thinking about it, that's a lot of pressure for a 20-year-old.
Mm-hmm.
And, constantly being told you're the reason, you could possibly be the reason someone else doesn't come home or not. And so, right. And, I think a lot of that comes from that. Right? And, going through different deployments and, just realizing how much of an impact we have as junior leaders and, being that close proximity with junior soldiers and peers itself.
Mm-hmm.
So, there was, I think a lot of it built off of that. And, I was a hothead, I was a hothead in the beginning and, I ate some humble pie every once in a while. I had great leaders I had some awesome leaders that, grabbed me and was like, check yourself. And, however, there's still a lot of, remorse of the way I behaved and the way I acted as far as, I know now it wasn't really, I was just doing the best I could. Right.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, when did you actually were you married in the military?
Yeah. So I got married. I got married during my deployment. I came back home on leave and got married.
Oh my.
Best way to spend the deployment, buddy.
Honeymoon.
Yeah. So you can add that to one of the stereotypes. However, so we went to the courthouse on my R&R, got married, and she moved in with me, came out to Missouri when I got back from that deployment.
Yeah. So when we've talked before, you said a particular quote. You said, and Bree and I were kind of taken back by it. Your first marriage was to the military, and did your wife know that?
Yeah. So that was kind of the conversation we had in the beginning. I was just like, as much I love you and everything. However, I'm committed to the Army at the time. I was like, this is, when I signed the papers, when I enlisted, this was me. This isn't a 9 to 5. This isn't a, when it's convenient. This is 24/7, 365. And, that was a mindset I had. And she was very supportive. And she understood that. She knew the commitment I made, and she knew the commitment I had to, my peers and my fellow soldiers. And, however, I'm sure no woman or no person wants to hear that they come second, right? So that came with its challenges as well.
Would you say that when you're in the beginning of your relationship, was it rocky? Was it hard for her to accept that? Or was she pretty flow with at the time? And then later on is when the kind of problems started happening?
Yeah. I would like to say she did her best to flow with, right? I can't really speak on what exactly was going on. However, things started to add on and things started to compound. And one of the things was we never really, we've been married for over 10 years now. However, we never spent that much time together. When we first together, I was deployed, and I came back, and we'd be going to the field and training. So it was a lot of on and off, right? So it was honeymoon phase, and then like, oh my God, I'm at your throat, and oh well, it's okay. I'll be gone for a month or 6 months or 9 months. And it's I miss you. Don't ever leave again. And then it's like, aren't you going to deploy anytime soon?
Yeah. Well, and it's really funny because we do talk about the impact of the job, right? So as a first responder, especially military, you have these really long deployments. We see this so much with fire, but the deployments are 3 weeks, max maybe a month for certain wildland. Military, you can be gone a year. And I don't know how long your longest deployment was, but I can imagine you have this new wife, and like you said, you're not there, and it can create relationship problems and assimilating back into the current relationship when you've been gone. So how long were you gone with your deployments during your marriage?
My first deployment was 12 months, and then the second one was 9 months. And you're absolutely right. However, I want to make sure it's clear. It wasn't really the deployments; it was me, right? I didn't create the time during those deployments to make sure I was calling and checking in with her and giving her the time. I'm sure, like many others, and kind of flipped the switch. Hey, goodbye, and I'll see you when I come back, kind of mindset. And so that added to it.
And I think that's very important for you calling yourself out to the carpet like that, buddy. Because a lot of people want to be outward focused and they want to blame other things of why their relationship didn't work or isn't working. However, you're acknowledging that, hey, it was me. It wasn't the deployment. It wasn't this. It wasn't that. It was me. And that's very, very admirable and brave, dude. That's awesome.
Thanks. And this conversation would be completely different a couple of years ago.
Well, speaking of that, we didn't know each other back then. However, how would that conversation go?
Very outward focused, like you said, right? There was a point in my life where I did blame a lot of it on the Army, on certain leaders I had, on the circumstances. My wife, especially, she carried she carried a lot of my burden and took a lot of shit from me, really. And the people around me, it was never me, right? It was I was doing everything I was supposed to. And everything I was doing wrong was because of something, right? So, yeah. However, that's kind of where we met, doing some work and some personal growth and development, and truly realizing that I made those decisions. I created that, right? And whether through stupidity or ignorance, it was something that something I developed.
So this leads us perfectly into mental wellness. Okay, so you have this kind of transformation. Where did your priorities change when your first marriage is the military, it's the Army, you're telling your wife this, that's number one. So what pivoted your life? About 2-3 years ago, I was trying out for the special forces. So I was doing the selection process, and that's something I always wanted to do in the Army, right? I love the deployment aspect.
everything that came with the camaraderie and really do. If I'm going to serve, I want to serve, right? However, I was laying there and I realized my son. I just recently had a son, and he was 2 at the time, and I realized I already missed half of his life. I spent 6 months in Guam, came back, and I wasn't really spending time with my family because I was training. I was training the whole time to get ready for selection, and my wife was super supportive. I think she didn't really want me to go. However, she knew that was my dream, and so she watched him and everything. And I'm laying there, and I was thinking, all right, I think I'm gonna make it. However, I'm going to spend, this much time. I got more training to do if I get selected. I got to put in my time with the team and all this deployment. And I thought about it. It's like, by the time I get out, how much of my time with my son am I going to miss? Right. And again, this goes back to me I wasn't at the point where I was taking responsibility for my life. Right. So I was like, okay, one of the things I thought was like, do I want to tell my son cool stories about everything dad's done? Or do I want to tell my friends and my counterparts all the cool stories of what I've done with my son? Mm-hmm. And so I dropped out, came back, and I just got selected for a promotion to Sergeant First Class at the time. And that was it. I was just like, I'm done. I'm burnt out. This isn't where I want to be anymore. I want to be better for my son, and I really don't know any other way than this. And I also feel like I can do a lot more as a civilian with some of the support that I want to do. And
No, so the gun incident, was that before this or was that after this?
Yeah, that was before. So back in 2013, I was going through separation with my wife. I just came back from another deployment. I was doing a lot of drinking. I was, just a downward spiral. Part of my ego. I was injured, not deployment related. However, I blew out my knee, and so it just started spiraling for me, and I was done. I didn't know what else was there for me. I wasn't sure, where I was going to be anymore, and I had a hard time dealing with some of the situations I've been with, and I felt like I let a lot of people down at the time. My wife specifically, friends and family that I left behind, possibly, and that's when, at a leadership point, it started hitting me. Am I doing the right thing? Have I done right by my people? And that was it. I was done. I was just like, this is it. So on my birthday, I was on the phone with my wife. We had a conversation. I don't really remember the conversation. She was in Houston at the time. I was in Missouri, and told her I loved her. Got off the phone. I think I told her I was tired and I was going to go to sleep. Told her I loved her. Hung up and grabbed my pistol, put it on the counter. I was like, all right, I'm gonna go out, party it up, and get back, and that's it. And went out, partied, and thank God, partied too hard, and I woke up this next morning. That was from there on. I realized, okay, well, this was the choice I've made, and what difference does it make if I do it today or tomorrow? So took it one day at a time, and not for recovery wise. However, what's another day? If I'm gonna do it, what's another day?
Because that's always looming in the background, like you have an exit.
Yeah. I had good days. However, it was always kind of like my plan B in a sense, right? Whenever shit hits the fans, and I'll do whatever I want, and I'll just keep drinking and partying, and when it gets to the point where it's too bad, then I always got plan B. So, and I spent a lot of my time and energy focusing on making sure nobody knew I was in that position, right? Versus getting out of it.
So you were a good liar.
Yeah.
So, you talk about plan B, always having that exit. Now, now you're in a completely different frame of mind. You're in a way better place than where you were. So now what's plan B if plan A doesn't work out?
Not to be egotistical, but plan A is going to work out, so I ain't worried about plan A.
There it is. I knew you were going to say that. That's awesome, man. So what are you doing now, man? 11 or 12 years, staff sergeant. Yeah. What are you doing now?
So I'm a financial strategist. I work with retirement planning and long-term financial strategies. I've also started, I'm starting and forming a construction company. So that started about a couple months ago. It just happened. And that one's geared more towards the helping veterans out programs, things like that. I'm also on a board for a nonprofit called Community First out here in Houston. We're doing a lot of outreach. Started with COVID, supporting local businesses and giving back to healthcare workers, and really growing off of that.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. So
your priorities changed. Changed, and with your over decade of time in the military, was that really difficult for you to make that decision, even though you were at a really low point? You have your son. It's this kind of mental transformation, realizing what you're sacrificing. Was it hard for you to leave the military?
Oh, absolutely. It was very difficult, it was almost like a now or never kind of feeling. I had 11 years in, I just got selected for promotion to sergeant first class. And those are, things that a lot of people hope to get. And I was super excited to do that. However, I realized I kind of weighed out what the next 8 years of my life could be. And I remember listening to another podcast. I was like, maybe I'm just like in the dumps and I just need to get like recharged and motivated. And I listened to this podcast, and I won't call the other name of the podcast on this podcast.
It's all good.
However, they interviewed I believe it was a PJ, and he was just like, I realized I did everything I wanted to do in the Army, and I realized my creativity and everything I can do to support I can do on the outside, right? And I sat there and I was the benefits and the camaraderie, and I talked to a lot of my mentors that I met in the Army, and they're like, realistically, what you miss is all the cool guy stuff and all and the connections you make. You don't need to be in uniform to do that, right? So from there, I started thinking outside the box. I realized there's a majority of people that's never joined the military and are doing perfectly fine and doing well, right?
What do you mean? They're not first responders.
Yeah, right? So I was like, and if they talk all this great stuff about being a leader in the Army, why wouldn't I be able to do it, right? So I literally did what I told countless people not to do, was to get out of the Army without a plan. And I didn't really have a plan, and I
hey, like you said, it's going to be plan A, whatever plan A is.
That's awesome. And so one of the leaders came up to me and was like, "Man, you got 9 more years. Just ride it out." I was like, "That's your selling point? To ride it out?" I was like, "I'm good."
And how old would your son be if you did write it out 9 more years? How old would your son be?
He would have been like 12, I believe, 12, 13, somewhere around there, right? So,
wow. Amazing, man.
So you would have missed all that time, and making that decision to invest more in your family and relationships than your career, I think is very painful, because you have your identity. You have this high rank, you're respected. Like you said, you have this camaraderie, but then at home, that's really struggling and dwindling. And you made the decision, I can't have both, so I'm going to choose my family.
Yeah. And I'll tell you the point where I realized I made that choice was because, I made the choice, and I've always thought about it, like, did I make the right choice? Did I mess up? Like, should I just, maybe that next month could have been better. However, after I got out, I was going on a trip. I was going on I think I forget what trip I was going to. It had nothing Army related. However, I think my son was 3 at the time, and I was like, "Hey, Dad's going to go on a trip. He'll be back." And the look on his face of this is it. My dad's not coming home after this. His mind was I was doing some. He's 3. He had no understanding of it. That I was doing something dangerous, and he was never going to see me again. And I wasn't, and that was the point I realized I made the best choice.
No,
I made the right choice.
But hey, you came back. That's all. That's all he knows is you came back and you're there and you're there. So that's the most important thing.
Yeah.
Thank you, so much for sharing that, man. That's deep.
Yeah, and thank you guys for having me on the call. And I honestly didn't know if I honestly want to do this. My first time sharing my story with strangers that are going to be listening in. So I actually want to give a shout out, if I could, to a guy named Sean Ambrose. He's a Sergeant First Class right now. I met him in Hawaii. He just came out with a book, Ghosts of the Valley, and I've been watching him this last year promote this book about his experience with mental health and as a leader, and him being vulnerable and putting himself out there for the community. He's the one who really gave me that last bit of, okay, if I can do it.
I think, Brian, not only is that very powerful, but I think this is the ripple effect that we want to create. If you see someone who's in this high rank, high standing, we consider first responders as invincible. But when you really peel back the layers, it really is about human connection and just being the best person. And sometimes our identity takes over what we really need and want out of this life. And it is about mental wellness. And so if we can dissect all the different layers and talk about it, and you being so real about basically a potential suicide attempt, which is extremely makes you vulnerable in an intimate moment in your life. But we see this pivot that there's more than that. And now look at you today. You're open, you're accepting, and you're happier, and you chose, the life that you wanted to live. So I really commend you, and I'm so thankful that you were on our podcast.
Thank you. I'm really glad I got invited too.
Yeah, well, you're not done yet, buddy. Next,
you have one more thing.
Next up is rapid fire, buddy. You ready?
All right. Let's do it.
All right, so the rule is you can only answer in one word or one phrase, all right? Yeah, clear that throat.
Yep.
So Bree will ask the questions.
Okay, so we have 5 questions. First one,
Okay.
If you could be a cartoon character, who would you be?
Goofy.
Me too.
Yeah, probably. Okay, number 2, what are you the most proud of?
My son.
That's awesome.
Number 3, worst chore to be assigned in the Army?
Anything that starts with "Hey you."
That's awesome.
Number 4, what's one thing you would say to President Biden?
Do good.
Yeah. And last question, describe yourself in one word.
Amazing.
Yeah. On that note, buddy, you absolutely are amazing. Your story is breathtaking, man. It really empowers the person listening, and I hope that did for you all. Again, amazing, Brian. Thank you so much for being on the podcast, and love to have you back, and really appreciate your support, buddy.
I would love to be back, definitely.
Absolutely. All right, guys, this is Project Mayday. Call out.